In a recent Time magazine article, Ray Dalio of Bridgewater Associates hedge funds warned that the world is on the brink of disaster. He came to this conclusion based on current events that haven't happened since the 1930s. The largest amounts of debt and inflation, the biggest gaps in wealth and values, resulting in the rise of populism on both the left and the right against the elites, and the greatest international conflict between world powers, most importantly, between the US and China. Peter Onge writes that the easy way out of this mess would be for the elite to proactively shrink in scope, get government out of the economy, out of social engineering, and out of propagandizing kids. But of course, this won't happen. Common sense and simple observation will tell you that the so-called elites will continue on their path towards economic destruction and world war, which is likely what the international bankers had planned all along. Let us not forget that the fast-growing BRICS monetary system was born in 2001 out of Goldman Sachs. In 1971, President Nixon officially ended the gold standard and replaced it with the petrodollar, in which OPEC agreed to price their oil in US dollars in exchange for US military protection. This blood money deal preserved US control over the world economy. But when the US weaponized the SWIFT payment system against Russia, BRICS became the only viable solution for the rest of the world. Reuters in New Delhi reported that last May, the State Bank of India rejected Indian Oil Corp's planned payment in US dollars for Russian oil. And so they went to a private bank and settled their trade for Russian oil by paying in yuan to the Bank of China, and have continued to do so since. A shortage of US dollars in Argentina has caused commercial banks to allow the Chinese yuan as a form of currency in savings and checkings accounts. Argentina has already been issuing securities in the Chinese yuan and has made a $2.7 billion payment to the International Monetary Fund using the Chinese BRICS currency. The Federal Reserve Bank's FedNow is scheduled for launch by the end of July. FedNow is officially an update to the Federal Reserve's payment processing and settlement system and appears to be a backdoor to creating a central bank digital currency. Private blockchain operator Tassat has partnered with the Federal Reserve's new payment system and will serve as an interface for FedNow. FedNow will also connect with Metal Blockchain, whose CEO and founder claims will allow banks to prepare for an eventual central bank digital currency, along with bank-issued stablecoins. The idea of a central bank digital currency is already hugely unpopular with the majority of Americans. But according to Dale Hauser, it is being set up to destroy alternative blockchain solutions, such as Ripple and Stellar. And if the powers that be are successful in destroying the US economy, then the only other option to accepting a CBDC would be some sort of revolution, which would be nearly impossible, seeing as how divided the populist movement is within the left-right paradigm. Last week in China, the World Economic Forum proclaimed that the entire world needs to switch to a central bank digital currency with expiry dates and restrictions on undesirable purchases. They proposed using artificial intelligence to censor hate speech and disinformation on the internet, and using artificial intelligence to control a global social credit system that will involve wearable devices with sensors to monitor everyone's actions. If we, the people, fail to unite against the powers that be, then their solution will most certainly be world war, depopulation, and total control. And this is all happening right now.
I think they're going to use this financial crisis as an opportunity to start to float the idea of the central bank digital currency as a solution. I think they're going to dangle UBI, Universal Basic Income, as a goodie. And they're going to try to tie it all to the CBDC. So if you do take the UBI, you probably have to have the CBDC. And I think that ultimately is what we're going to see starting in Q1 of 2024.
So the government comes out with the UBI, It doesn't have to be large. It could even be like, you know, a few grand a year or maybe more, but you got to take it via the CBDC. So it starts the process.
Yeah, I think we're going to start to see those types of ideas floated. Whether they get implemented or not is up to us to spread the word that this is, you know, if I'm right and and I say what they're going to do, and then they start doing what I said they were going to do, and enough people are awake to it, we can thwart it. Knowledge is key.
And several central banks have, like the Bank of England, already prepared their microchip. And why is the sudden discussion about universal basic income from all the grassroots and inverted commas movements and billionaires? Oh, universal basic income is the bribe for you to accept the microchip.
The Federal Reserve is considering a digital dollar. The implications for privacy and freedom are frightening. But central bank digital money is ominous. The downside of governments being able to track digitally every single product or service you buy and sell is chilling.
Hoping people wake up enough to at least slow it down. Because these people are pushing in a very obvious and very specific direction. They want digital currency, centralized digital currency that they control, and they want to get everybody on a social credit score system, and they're probably connected to some sort of a vaccine app. Or if you want to travel around, all they would need is another pandemic to try to push that shit through. And they're already talking about that. It's very spooky. Because when you look into the history of this lab and them funding it and this getting out and the way they responded to it, the whole thing is so scary because it was effective. It was effective and very, very financially effective. I mean, they made a lot of fucking money.
Yeah.
And if they could do something similar again and then clamp down more on people, that's what scares me. This talk of centralized digital currency, that's what they have in China. If you fuck up in China and you get a bad social credit score because you tweeted something they didn't like, now you can't buy a plane ticket. Now you can't buy a car.
Yeah.
Now you can't get a loan. Now you can't do something. You step the fucking line, and people self-censor because they don't want to be a part of that. And now they got you. Here we know that the government was involved in silencing different voices. You know, they stopped that Hunter Biden laptop story from getting out before the election. It's so obviously